friends. So
Hi.
today we will be talking about
Adolescent Idealism.
Please go grab a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and we'll talk about this together. Let's go. So my sister, who is 23 years of age, she is really looking forward to her elegant 30s, and she always pesters me with the question of why I love being a teenager so much. And I always tell her that it's so hard for me to explain to her why I love being a teenager when I'm still 17, aka a teenager, when she left the glory years, I call it, 4 years ago. It's like trying to teach your grandpa how to use a smartphone.
For me, I have a younger brother, and he's currently a freshman in high school. And for me, I kind of understand your sister's point of view because she's older than you and she has gone through more experiences and seen more of the world. For her to say that it's also her own ideal and her own mindset, which is how I sometimes treat my brother, and even though we're both adolescents, to an extent, I still sometimes say that, oh, I have more experience than you, so I understand more of the world, and why do you like doing this? You're such a freshman, things like that.
Yeah, and I feel like because of these kind of, I guess, clashing ideas at times, from my point of view, I kind of view it as a lot of times because adults and older people are always telling us we need to grow up and we need to learn more about the world as we age, and that kind of brings about this like glorification of being older. So like when we're young, we're always like, oh, I want to grow older, I want to grow older. And then when people actually do grow older, they're like, I want to get younger, I want to get younger. So I'm kind of like, that's sort of hypocritical. Like there's something so great about youth, and I feel like a lot of times it's so degraded. For example, did you ever have a time when you felt like your parents were kind of like neglecting your idea just because you were like a child?
I think as a child, a lot of ideas or things that you say go unheard, especially because what you say is so seems unimportant to compared to adult problems, quote unquote adult problems. I feel like for children, their problems become insignificant because they assume that because we have such a small world and a small scope of understanding, our problems are only big to our world but not to them.
Yeah, that's very true. Like for example, I tend to get these like waves of existentialism, as you know, and like when I get these waves of existentialism, it's like very physically tiring a lot of times to have these existential crises, and I think it's a very common thing for teenagers to have these existential crises. And I'm not saying that hormones don't play any kind of role in this at all, because I guess hormones do, but it's like when you want to talk about with your parents, a lot of times they would kind of be like, oh, it's hormones, it's gonna pass. But I would much rather have them take it seriously and try to work me through it, like work out my problem and the questions I have in my head, like with them. If they're so knowledgeable, they should be cooperating, not isolating.
And on a more serious note, this is also one of the problems, I guess, as to why a lot of mental health issues go unnoticed, or a lot of teenagers go through a lot of mental health issues because the adults, even if they find out, even if they know, they just automatically say, oh, you're going through a phase, oh, this is just puberty hitting you. And so that's another reason why teens are really struggling to talk to their parents honestly, or talk to adults honestly about what they're feeling inside.
But at the same time, I think it's such a great thing that we have media these days. We kind of have this, everybody has this like internet persona that they are able to use to voice their opinions. Like I look at Twitter, I look at YouTube, I look at like Instagram, and these people our age are doing so many things and showing it off to the world, voicing their opinions, and I think that kind of new culture that's popping up is really amazing.
There's like two different spectrums of how media is used as an outlet, and I think adults really tend to focus on the negative part of the spectrum. So they see all the ridiculous challenges, ridiculous things that are going on, and they don't see the parts of the internet or the media that really does actually make a difference.
Like I see, especially like for me, I'm kind of like into Instagram these days, and when you look at Instagram, you see teenagers, like if it's like a fashion Instagram, you have like college students and teenagers having these like really extravagant outfits and like taking pictures with it, and I think that's such a great way of self-expression. And especially like today, when there's so much political sensitivity all around, the fact that we have a safe platform, in a way safe, to a certain extent it is pretty safe platform for us to voice our opinions. It's a pretty good privilege, and I think to a certain degree, because we are young and because we have in a way a narrow-mindedness, we are able to have the boldness to speak up. which is necessary at times.
Even in Korea with the political controversies, there was a recent news article about little girls or little students, elementary school students even, who stood up on stage to protest against what the president was doing and all of the political issues going on. And sometimes adolescent and teenage ideas and ways of thinking can also be very helpful because they're so not tainted by the evils of society. And so I actually think that sometimes they can actually make a positive difference. There are a lot of benefits to being an adolescent, and there are things that we lose or that everyone loses when they age. And I think one of those things is just the pureness and the rawness of it, and how an emotion is very raw and there's nothing else mixed with it. So if you're happy, you're strictly happy. You don't think about all the consequences, but as an adult, you think about the other factors that are going into whatever
consequences for the emotion. And these emotions are like magnified by our hormones, which is what creates the idealism that we're kind of stuck in during our teenage years, which is so great in a way because it makes everything in the world seem very beautiful. It's kind of like ignorance is bliss. Like sometimes I'll be walking home after school, I look at like a car passing by and I think that's really beautiful. Like, you know, you have these like very intense hormonal moments that are actually like a very big part of life.
One of our counselors, we actually asked her the question, are teens narrow-minded? And she replied with a one-word answer, and she said it's very unintentional. And what she meant by this is that when you're older, you have more of an opportunity to broaden your scope and explore the world and meet new people and kind of experience different cultures. And so she said that I guess adolescents are narrow-minded without even knowing.
Which is a valid point for sure. Like obviously, as you experience more, the same meaning as if you age, you're going to have a greater scope of this world, but at the same time you could question, like, do you really have a greater scope of the world? Because you're constantly, as you grow older, you're constantly have to like justify your choices even more and more, and that kind of justification and constant finding for reason can kind of like obscure what your scope is and like obscure what you're exploring. So what was our conversation today inspired by, Julie?
So recently we both read a book called All the Pretty Horses by
Cormac McCarthy.
Yeah, it really explored adolescence and the pros and cons of it.
It was in its like heart, it was a coming of age novel. So it kind of had this protagonist who is John Grady Cole. And this John Grady Cole man, he goes into Mexico from Texas thinking that it's going to be a world of greatness and a world of like red dust and like power and cowboy manhood. And then he kind of discovers that the real world is pretty violent. And we're not going to spoil it for anyone, but that was kind of like the idea. And then in the end, he kind of returns with a revelation, which is like all coming of age novels.
We realized that although there were a lot of hardships and a lot of struggles and the coming of age is really a very tough road. There's still that freedom of being able to escape, and you're still able to make decisions without being held responsible for it because you're an adolescent.
For me, I kind of like found like John Grady Cole's boldness to like go out to Mexico as beautiful as his ending revolution. And it's very interesting because he actually puts like similar images for his first idealism and the ending scene. So I feel like in some ways, maybe he's trying to explore the relationship too, Cormac McCarthy. Today's episode was inspired by Cormac McCarthy's All the Pretty Horses about adolescent idealism.
I hope this sparks some conversations over the dinner table between the kids and the parents.
Yeah, have some fight over the chicken.
We'll see you next week.
Bye!